The morning after the incident, the lake house felt colder than usual. The sunlight peeked through the mist, glinting off the calm water, but inside, tension lingered like a shadow. Olivia hadn't slept much. Every sound in the night had kept her alert, her mind racing with images of someone lurking in the woods. Ryan was already awake, standing on the porch with a cup of coffee in his hand. His presence was steady, his focus sharp, scanning the trees as if expecting something to move. When Olivia stepped outside, wrapped in her gray sweater, he gave her a nod. "Morning," she said quietly. "Morning," he replied. I checked the ground again. Whoever was out there didn't come back. But they were watching last night. I'm sure of it. Oh, she shivered. Do you think they'll return? People who watch don't always stop easily, he said. But now they know this house isn't unprotected. That changes things. Olivia watched him as he spoke, calm, firm, but with a certain gentleness in his tone. For the first time, she realized how much she trusted him, a stranger she'd only known for 2 days. There was something reassuring about his quiet confidence. The way he carried himself without trying to impress or intimidate. He spent the morning setting up new security cameras, moving with precision and purpose. Olivia tried to focus on her work, but every time she looked out the window, her eyes followed him. When he came back inside, brushing dirt from his hands, she smiled softly. "You work like you've done this all your life," she said. He half smiled. "Feels like it sometimes. I like fixing things, making people feel safe." There was a warmth in his voice that made her heart beat faster. She quickly looked away, pretending to tidy the counter. "Well, you're doing a good job," she said. The day passed slowly. By evening, clouds gathered again, heavy and dark. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain. Olivia made soup for dinner, a quiet comfort. Ryan joined her at the table, his phone beside him, his expression thoughtful. "Any updates from the cameras?" she asked. "Nothing unusual yet," he said. "But storms can interfere with signals. I'll check again later." She nodded, then, after a pause, asked softly, "Do you ever get scared? Doing this kind of work?" Ryan leaned back, considering. "Fear keeps you sharp. You don't get rid of it, you learn to listen to it." "I wish I could do that," Olivia admitted. "Lately, I feel like fear is the only thing I hear." "You've been through a lot," he said gently. "Being alone in a place like this, it gets in your head. You start imagining the worst. But you're stronger than you think." Words landed deep. For months, she had been fighting that very feeling, the loneliness, the doubts, the long-distance strain with Ethan. She missed her husband. But lately, even when they spoke, she felt a growing distance. Like two people living in separate worlds, Ryan must have sensed her quiet sadness. "You're not alone anymore," he said simply. The storm began soon after. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. The lights flickered once, then went out completely. The sudden darkness made Olivia gasp. Ryan grabbed a flashlight. "Backup power should kick in soon," he said, scanning the hallway. "Stay here, I'll check the fuse." She waited, listening to the wind howl outside. The flashlight beam moved through the rooms below. Then, for a brief second, she thought she saw something, a silhouette outside the window, tall and still. Her breath caught Ryan. She called out. He appeared at the bottom of the stairs instantly, his voice steady. "What is it?" "There's someone outside," she whispered, pointing to the window. "I saw a shape by the trees." He moved quickly, grabbing a flashlight and his phone. "Stay inside. Don't move." Olivia's hands trembled as she watched him step into the storm. The wind slammed the door behind him, and the minutes that followed stretched endlessly. The house creaked and moaned, every gust of wind sounding like footsteps. When the door finally opened again, Ryan was drenched, his face tense. "Someone was definitely out there," he said, locking the door behind him. "But they took off when I got close. They know we're watching now." Her voice shook. "Why are they doing this? Why me?" "I don't know yet," he said quietly. "But I'll find out." He spoke with certainty that steadied her nerves. She handed him a towel, and as he dried off, she noticed a cut on his arm. "You're hurt," she said. "It's nothing," he replied. "You should clean it." She insisted, fetching the first aid kit. When she dabbed the wound with antiseptic, he didn't flinch, though his eyes stayed fixed on hers. "Thanks," he murmured. "You're risking a lot for someone you barely know," she said softly. He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "You don't leave people unprotected. That's not how I was raised." Their eyes met, and for the first time, Olivia felt something shift inside her, a quiet connection born out of trust and fear. Something deeper than gratitude. The power flickered back on, flooding the room with soft light. The tension eased a little, but the silence that followed carried weight. Ryan stepped back, clearing his throat. "I'll keep watch from the porch tonight," he said. "Whoever's out there won't try again if they see me." "You don't have to stay out there," she said, concerned. "I'll be fine," he said, putting on his jacket. "You should get some sleep." But she couldn't. Hours later, she peeked out the window and saw him sitting on the porch, rain still falling lightly. He looked steady, unbothered, like he belonged to the night itself. The next morning, storm had passed, leaving behind a washed-out calm. Olivia stepped outside, coffee in hand, and found Ryan still awake, tired but alert. "You didn't sleep?" she asked. He shook his head. "Didn't want to miss anything?" There were no signs of movement after midnight. "You can't keep doing this without rest." She said, "I've gone longer." He replied with a faint smile. She looked at him, the faint dark circles under his eyes, the quiet determination still in his posture. Something in her heart ached, not out of fear, but out of care. "You shouldn't have to do this alone," she said softly. He looked at her then, the morning light catching his eyes. "I'm not alone," he said. The air between them grew quiet, charged with unspoken emotion. Olivia turned away before it could deepen, busying herself with breakfast. Yet throughout the day, their eyes met more often, lingering just a moment too long. Later that afternoon, while reviewing the camera footage, Ryan froze. "There," he said, pointing to the screen. A blurry image showed a figure standing near the woods, tall, hooded, unmoving. Olivia's stomach dropped. "That's from last night." "Yes," he said. "Right before the storm hit. Can you see the face?" "No. But whoever it is, they're watching the house closely. Almost like they're waiting for something." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. What could they want? Ryan hesitated. "Sometimes it's not about wanting something. It's about control, making you feel afraid." She exhaled shakily. "It's working." He placed a hand on the table, close to hers, but not touching. "Not for long. I'll find out who it is." That evening, she got a call from Ethan. The connection was weak, but his tone was distracted. "I can't come home yet, Liv," he said. "The project got extended. Just hang in there a bit longer." Her voice was tight. "Someone's been watching the house, Ethan. I hired security." He sighed. "You always worry too much. You'll be fine." The call ended, leaving her staring at the silent phone. Ryan, standing nearby, had heard enough to understand. "He doesn't believe you?" he asked. She shook her head. "He's too busy to care." Ryan said nothing, but his jaw tightened. "You deserve to feel safe, Olivia. And seen." The words hit her harder than she expected. For months, she had felt invisible in her marriage, in her own life. But standing there, with Ryan's quiet sincerity surrounding her, she felt seen for the first time in a long while. As night fell, she sat by the window, watching the reflection of the lake shimmer under the moonlight. Ryan checked the locks one last time before heading to the guest room. "Good night," he said softly. "Good night." "Ryan," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She lay awake long after, listening to the quiet hum of the house, her mind replaying the events of the day. The fear was still there, but alongside it was something new, something she didn't want to name yet. But outside, in the darkness beyond the trees, a faint red light blinked, the reflection of a camera lens. Someone else was watching too, closer than either of them realized, and the worst part, it wasn't a stranger this time. It had been one of those nights when the wind howled through the tall pines outside Olivia Carter's lake house. rattling the windows and echoing through the empty rooms. The place, once her weekend escape, now felt like a hollow memory. Since her husband Ethan had taken the overseas contract 6 months ago, she'd been living there alone, surrounded by silence that seemed to grow heavier every night. Olivia was 35, a marketing executive who had built a strong, composed life, yet lately, every creak in the wood made her tense. She told herself it was just the isolation, but something in her gut whispered that someone had been watching the house lately. A week ago, she noticed footprints in the damp soil near the porch, not hers, not Ethan's. The same night, her dog had barked for hours at the woods beyond the fence. She brushed it off as her imagination, but the unease stayed. When Ethan called from London that morning, his voice had sounded distant, not just from time zones, but from emotion. "You'll be fine, Live," he said. "Just keep the alarm system on, and maybe I'll fly home in a few weeks." She didn't tell him about the footprints. She didn't tell him about the headlights she'd seen pausing near her driveway 2 nights in a row. She didn't want to sound paranoid. But later that day, after she got a call from the security company offering temporary protection due to increased break-ins in the area, something in her said yes. That's how Ryan Pierce entered her life. He arrived that evening in a dark SUV, tall, broad-shouldered, quiet. He looked around before stepping out, his presence steady, confident, but calm. "Mrs. Carter?" he asked in a deep, even tone. "Olivia," she corrected with a polite smile, pulling her coat tighter. "I appreciate you coming. It's probably nothing, but lately, I've just felt uneasy." He nodded once, scanning the yard. "Better to be cautious. I'll do a full check around the property." There was something about the way he spoke, calm, sure, professional, that made her exhale for the first time in days. Inside, while he examined the doors and windows, Olivia watched from the kitchen. He moved with quiet precision, like someone who had done this 100 times. When he finished, he returned to the living room. "No signs of forced entry," he said. "But there's something off near the back gate. Fresh boot prints. Recent." Olivia froze. "Boot prints? You mean," he gave a small nod, "I'll stay the night. Just in case." Her heart skipped. "Stay here. It's standard when there's a potential threat," he said simply. "You can lock the bedroom. I'll take the sofa." She hesitated, then agreed. Somehow, knowing someone else was in the house, someone alert, felt like safety she hadn't realized she needed. The evening passed quietly. Rain began tapping against the windows. Olivia made tea, and they exchanged few words. Ryan didn't talk much, but when he did, there was a steadiness in his voice that drew her in. He wasn't the kind of man who filled silence with meaningless chatter. He let it breathe. "You do this often?" she asked after a while. He glanced up from his phone. "I've worked private security for about 5 years. Before that, military." "I figured," she said softly. "You have that look." He smiled faintly, just enough to lighten the air. "What look?" "The one that says you notice everything." That night, Olivia tried to sleep, but the sound of footsteps in the hall jolted her awake. She sat up, heart pounding, until she heard Ryan's low voice through the door. "It's just me. I heard something outside." "Stay inside." She waited, gripping the blanket. Through the window, lightning flashed, revealing the dark outline of the trees. Moments later, the front door creaked open, then shut again. The storm drowned out everything else. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Then she heard his voice again. "It's fine. Just the wind knocking the trash bin over." Relief washed over her, though her hand still trembled. "You scared me," she said as she opened the door. "Sorry," he said quietly. "Didn't mean to." In the dim hallway light, he looked calm, but his eyes scanned everything, alert, cautious. She noticed then a thin scar along his jaw, the kind that hinted at stories untold. "Do you ever get used to this?" she asked softly. He tilted his head. "Staying awake when others sleep." "I guess so. It's the silence that gets to you sometimes." She understood that too well. "It's strange," she said. "When you're alone, silence feels heavy. But right now, it doesn't." Ryan held her gaze for a moment before looking away. "That's because you're not alone tonight." The words hung between them, simple but grounding. She went back to bed and finally fell asleep to the sound of rain when morning came. Sunlight streamed through the windows, painting golden patterns on the floor. Olivia woke to the smell of coffee. Ryan was in the kitchen, quiet as ever, setting 2 mugs on the counter. "You didn't have to do that," she said with a small smile. "I figured it might help after last night," he replied. They sat across from each other, the sound of the rain replaced by soft morning stillness. "So," he said, glancing toward the door, "about those boot prints, I think someone's been circling your property for a while. I'll set up a motion light and camera tonight. That should scare them off." Her chest tightened. "Do you think it's serious?" "I don't jump to conclusions," he said calmly, "but I'd rather be careful." Later that day, Olivia worked from her laptop in the living room while Ryan moved outside, checking the fences and installing lights. She tried to focus on her reports, but her eyes kept drifting toward the window, watching him work. There was something strangely comforting in the way he carried himself, disciplined yet human, detached yet present. When the evening came, the house grew quieter again. Olivia lit a few candles, the scent of lavender filling the air. "You sure you're okay staying up again?" she asked as Ryan checked the cameras. "I'm used to it," he said. "You should rest." "I'll try," she said softly, though sleep felt far away. As she turned to go upstairs, he called after her, "Olivia." She paused at the bottom of the staircase. "Lock the door tonight," he said. "Even if I'm here." "I will," she said, meeting his eyes. "Thank you, Ryan." "Really?" He gave a short nod, his expression unreadable. Later, long after midnight, Olivia lay awake, listening to the faint hum of rain and wind. She felt safe, yet aware. The air in the house carried a strange tension, not fearful but alive. Somewhere below, she could hear Ryan's footsteps, measured and steady. But then, faintly, another sound. A creak outside near the back deck, her breath caught. Then she heard Ryan move swiftly downstairs, his voice low. "Who's there?" No answer. Olivia sat up, heart racing. A crash echoed, maybe a branch, maybe not. She froze, waiting. The silence that followed was unbearable. Then footsteps, Ryan's returning to the stairs. He appeared at her door moments later, eyes alert. "It's fine," he said quietly. "But someone was near the deck. I saw movement by the trees before they ran." Her hands trembled. "Someone was out there." He nodded once. "Yes, and they were watching." Her throat tightened. "What do we do?" "For now," he said, calm but firm, "you stay inside. Tomorrow, I'll contact local security and get more cameras installed." She exhaled shakily. "I thought this place was supposed to be peaceful." "It will be," he said. "But whoever was out there, they'll think twice before coming back." Olivia looked at him, the way his jaw tightened, the quiet certainty in his stance. "Thank you," she whispered. He gave a small nod. "Just doing my job." But as he turned to go, the soft glow of the hallway light fell across his face, revealing something more, a flicker of emotion, quick and unspoken. She watched him disappear down the stairs, her heartbeat still uneven. The storm outside had passed, but inside, something else had begun to stir, a feeling she couldn't name yet. And somewhere beyond the fence, seen in the shadows, someone was still watching. The morning sun filtered through the mist, soft and pale, yet Olivia felt no calm. The unease from the night before still lingered in the air, thicker than the fog over the lake. She stood by the window with a cup of coffee, staring at the woods where the shadow had last appeared. Something about it felt too personal now, too targeted. Ryan came in quietly, his phone in hand, his expression serious. "I reviewed more footage," he said. "That figure came closer than I thought. Right to the edge of the porch, then turned back." Olivia's breath caught. "You mean they were that close?" He nodded. "And there's something else. They weren't alone." Her heart began to race. "What do you mean?" "I caught movement behind them. A flash, maybe a reflection. Could be a car. Someone's working with them." She set her cup down, her fingers trembling slightly. "Who would want to watch me? I've never hurt anyone. I'm not important. Ryan looked at her for a moment before saying quietly, "Sometimes it's not about importance. Sometimes it's personal." Those words hit her like a weight. She thought about her husband, Ethan, the long calls that grew shorter, the promises that faded. Lately, he had been more distant than ever, almost secretive. Could he be involved? No, she quickly shook off the thought. But doubt had a strange way of slipping through even the smallest cracks. The day stretched long and tense. Ryan moved around the property, reinforcing the doors, checking the cameras again and again. Olivia tried to read, but her eyes wouldn't focus. Every creak of the house made her glance up. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. By late afternoon, she couldn't take the silence anymore. She walked out to the porch where Ryan was tightening a bolt on the railing. "You've done so much already," she said softly. "You must be exhausted." He gave her a faint smile. "Not yet. You don't have to stay after tonight," she said. "I don't want you to feel trapped here." Set his wrench down, leaning against the post. "I don't stay because I have to, Olivia. I stay because I want to." Her heart skipped. There was no hesitation in his voice, no professional distance. She wanted to respond, to say something equally honest, but her throat tightened. "Ryan." Before she could finish, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "Private number," he said, then answered. "Hello." Olivia watched as his expression changed, alert, tense. "Who is this?" he said sharply. "How did you get this number?" A pause. Then his jaw tightened. "You stay away from her." He ended the call abruptly. "Who was it?" Olivia asked, her voice unsteady. "I don't know," he said, "but they knew your name. They said she doesn't belong to you." The word sent a chill through her. "What does that mean?" Ryan shook his head. "Someone's trying to scare us. But now they've crossed a line." That evening, he insisted on moving the security feeds into the living room so they could both monitor them. They sat in the dim light, screens flickering. The rhythmic sound of rain tapping the windows. Hours passed quietly until one of the cameras blinked. The feed glitched, then went dark. "What happened?" Olivia whispered. "Camera 3's offline," Ryan said, standing. "That's the one facing the driveway." He grabbed his flashlight. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me." "No," she said firmly. "I'm not staying alone again." He hesitated but saw the determination in her eyes. "Fine," he said finally. "Stay close." They stepped into the night together. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the air was heavy and thick. As they neared the edge of the driveway, Ryan stopped suddenly, holding up a hand. "There," he said quietly. A car sat half hidden behind the trees, headlights off. Its engine was cold. It had been there for a while. Ryan approached slowly, flashlight in one hand, the other hovering near his pocket. Olivia stayed a few steps behind, her heart pounding. When he reached the car, he opened the door carefully. Inside, the seats were empty, but on the dashboard lay a phone recording light still blinking. Olivia's stomach dropped. "They were recording us." Ryan picked up the phone, scrolling quickly. "There are dozens of clips," he said, "all from outside your house. Some from weeks ago." Her knees felt weak. "Weeks? Ryan, that means someone has been watching me long before you came." Kay met her eyes. "Yes, this wasn't random." They went back inside, both shaken but silent. Ryan set the phone on the table and began checking the files. Most were grainy, showing her walking by the windows, sitting on the porch, talking on her phone. Then he froze. "This one's recent," he said. He hit play. The video showed the night before the storm, the flickering lights, and then her standing by the window calling his name. But as she did, another shadow appeared behind her reflection. "Someone standing just beyond the porch." Olivia covered her mouth. "That's the same person," she whispered. "The one I saw." Ryan leaned closer. The video angle shifted slightly, and for a brief second, a face came into focus. Olivia gasped. "No, that can't be." It was Ethan. Ryan stared at her, shocked. "Your husband." Her voice broke. He's supposed to be in Chicago. He said he was working late. Ryan stood abruptly, anger flashing across his face. He's been here, watching you. I don't understand, she said, her words trembling. Why would he do that? Ryan exhaled slowly, trying to keep his tone calm. Maybe he thought you were hiding something. Maybe he didn't trust me being here. Tears filled her eyes. I told him I was scared. He didn't even believe me. The truth hit her hard all those times Ethan sounded distracted on the phone. The unexplained hesitations. He hadn't been away on business. He had been watching, testing, doubting her loyalty. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. You didn't deserve that. She wiped her tears, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't even know who he is anymore. They sat in silence for a long time, the screen still glowing faintly. Finally, Ryan said, I can confront him if you want. Make him stop. She shook her head. No, I'll talk to him. This is my fight. When Ethan arrived the next morning, Olivia was ready. He stepped out of the car looking tired, his eyes flicking nervously toward Ryan standing behind her. Liv, I can explain, he began. She crossed her arms. Then do it. He hesitated. I thought you were hiding something. You stopped answering my calls. And then I heard a man's voice when I phoned one night that was Ryan, she said sharply. My security guard. The man I hired because you weren't here. Ethan's face fell. I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to know what was going on. You watched me like a criminal, she said. You didn't ask. You didn't trust me. He ran a hand through his hair. I was stupid. I was jealous. I thought you thought wrong, she interrupted. Her voice was calm now, cold even. Do you have any idea what that did to me? To us? Ethan lowered his head, guilt written all over him. I'm sorry, Liv. I really am. But the apology came too late. Something between them had already broken when Ethan left later that afternoon. The silence that followed wasn't painful. It was freeing. Olivia stood by the porch, watching the car disappear down the dirt road. Ryan stepped beside her quietly. You okay? She nodded. For the first time in a long while, he looked at her, uncertain. What happens now? She turned to face him. Now I start over. On my own terms. There was a long pause. The lake shimmered under the sunlight, calm and quiet again. Ryan smiled faintly. And you'll be fine. And you'll... She asked softly. I'll move on to the next job. It's what I do. She hesitated. Well, thank you. For everything. For protecting me even when I didn't know I needed it. He gave her a nod. You made it easy to care. Their eyes met one last time, a moment filled with gratitude, understanding, and something deeper they both chose not to name. Then he walked toward his truck. The sound of gravel crunching under his boots fading slowly away. Olivia stood there long after he was gone. The breeze brushing her hair, the water whispering softly against the shore. She felt lighter somehow, not because everything was fixed, but because she had faced the truth and survived it. Later that evening, sat on the porch alone, watching the sunset melt into the horizon. The cameras were gone, the house quiet. For the first time in months, she wasn't afraid of being watched. But in her heart, she knew one thing for certain, sometimes. The people we trust the least are the ones who protect us. And the ones we trust the most are the ones who hide the darkest truths. And as the last light faded, she whispered to herself, never again.